In some moments of history, the danger is not in what was said, but in what was never said. In this story, not a single shot was fired, no official order was written, yet one moment of silence was enough to expose a secret that should never have been known. And the question I want you to keep in mind until the very end is this: when does silence become betrayal? The country was going through a delicate phase. External tension, sensitive negotiations, a fragile balance that could collapse with a single word. At the heart of all this, there was a man unknown to the public. Not a leader, not a famous politician. He was an employee, but in a dangerous place. His job seemed simple on the surface: organizing documents, reviewing reports, preparing correspondence before it was sent. But he saw everything, read everything, and knew more than he ever should have. One day, a different document arrived, sealed, short, but its content? Terrifying. It spoke of a secret plan, not an all-out war, but a clever move that, if successful, would quietly change the balance of power. He read the document once, then again. Then he stopped. He knew one thing for certain: if this document became public, there would be no turning back. The document was supposed to follow a strict path: specific people, precise timing, no room for error. But that night, there was a delay. Very small, not minutes, but seconds. Another person entered the room, not authorized, but not stopped either. He glanced at the document, asked a casual question, and at that moment, the man had to choose. He could have said, "This isn't for you." He could have closed the file, asked him to leave, intervened. But instead, he stayed silent. Not out of fear, but because the situation seemed unimportant. The man left. The document continued its journey. The day ended. He went home. And he had no idea that the silence he chose had already set in motion a chain of events that could not be stopped. Days later, rumors began to surface. Not vague rumors, but ones that were disturbingly precise. Small details known only to a few. And that's when the anxiety began. In the highest circles, a dangerous question was asked: where did this information leak from? No one had an answer, because the mistake was never recorded, never written, never admitted. Weeks later, the plan failed. Not because it was weak, but because it was no longer secret. The other side was ready, calm, waiting. The loss wasn't only military, it was political, economic, psychological. And all of it because of information that someone saw and didn't stop from being seen. Investigations began, logs reviewed, cameras analyzed, timelines reconstructed, until they reached that night. The room, the document, the two men. The employee was called in, not accused, just questioned. One question only: why didn't you speak? A long silence. Then he said, "I didn't think it mattered." That was the brutal truth. In sensitive places, nothing is ever unimportant. And there is no such thing as innocent silence. He wasn't prosecuted, he wasn't imprisoned, but he was transferred, removed, his name erased from every file, as if history itself told him, your presence was a mistake. But the impact remained. Relationships changed, alliances shifted, doors closed that were never opened again. Pause here for a moment and imagine yourself in his place. Would you have intervened? Or would you have stayed silent because it's not a big deal? Write your opinion in the comments because this question is much closer to our daily lives than you might think. How many times have you seen a mistake and said nothing? How many times have you thought, it's not my problem, someone else will handle it? But history doesn't only question those who make decisions. Sometimes, it questions those who stay silent. This story isn't about a document. It's about responsibility. Because silence is not always neutrality. In certain moments, it becomes indirect participation in the outcome. In the end, the plan wasn't destroyed by an obvious betrayal or by a brilliant enemy, but by ordinary silence in an extraordinary moment. Before you leave this video, think about this. If time went back to that moment, would history have changed if the man had spoken just one sentence? If you want another story about a small detail that shifted great powers or a decision never made with devastating consequences, write in the comments, "Silence is a decision," because the next story will make you realize that some words don't change history, but their absence does.